I'm Mari Ashby and my guest this week, Heather Wheeler, is the Conservative MP for South Derbyshire and Lillian Greenwood is Labour's MP in Nottingham South. Welcome to you both. And understandably, of course, the budget has dominated this week's political news. Heather Wheeler, you can't be feeling too comfortable at the backlash to your party's changes on national insurance. Reports are saying it's small businesses and the self-employed who are really going to feel worse off as a result.
Well, there are two facts to that. One is that it's a separate piece to the budget, so it's not voted on. When we vote on the budget, it's voted on in the autumn, and in between time there's a consultation. So I think many of these fears will be allayed in that consultation before the autumn. And separately...
So it might not happen. It's not popular at the moment, though, is it?
I didn't say that at all. What I said was their fears will be allayed because there's been an awful lot of nonsense over this. 60% of people who are self-employed will not be any worse off whatsoever. And it's amazing how that figure has not been brought out by the media.
So you think it's all going to change by the autumn?
I think things will be settling down by the autumn and the full facts will be got out there. And ultimately, if the richest pay, the richest pay. It's about fairness.
But if your figures are right, 40% are going to be worse off, though.
Well, if you're earning more than £100,000, I think you can afford 1%. Frankly, I think you can.
Lillian Greenwood.
Well, I think Heather's put in a very kind gloss on what's been an absolute disaster for the Chancellor and the government. Is they promised in their manifesto just 18 months ago that they weren't going to increase national insurance contributions. And now hard-working, self-employed people, start-ups, people who are running small businesses are finding that they're going to see an increase in their national insurance contributions.
Doesn't it make sense, though, Lillian? Because many would say it seems to make sense to equalise national insurance contributions.
Well, I think, as I say, that people are seeing a broken promise from this Tory government, and it comes in
a few months ago. You didn't say any of that then. Mr. Corbyn didn't say any of that.
Do you remember, Heather, during the last election campaign when there was posters from the Tory party claiming that Ed Miliband was going to put up national insurance contributions? You promised not to put up national insurance contributions, and that's precisely what you've done.
What you're saying is your party believes that's the hardest thing for people to swallow. Well, it's a broken promise.
Those changes come in at quite a relatively low level, and they're going to hit people with the changes that they weren't expecting. Whilst money is being given away in changes to inheritance tax, in corporation tax, this is a choice that this government are making, and you can see how unpopular it's proving already.
Heather Wheeler.
Clearly, I don't agree. Since the election, apart from anything else, we've got the referendum, we've got Brexit, things change. But more than that, we passed a new act since the 18 months of the election, and national insurance contributions changed then, national contributions 2 changed, national contributions 4 changing now. So nobody screamed and squealed then, and 60% of people will have no effect whatsoever.
OK, well, the Chancellor took time off from the row over national insurance to finally kickstart the Midlands Engine after years of playing second fiddle to the Northern Powerhouse. Phillip Hammond announced the region would get almost £400 million for the project, which is aiming to create 300,000 jobs. And he wasn't the only one handing out the cash. Government ministers flocked to this region to announce big handouts and spending plans. Here's our political editor, Tony Rowe.
The Chancellor's known as Spreadsheet Phil because of his love of planning, and this week he unveiled some big plans for the Midlands. Top of his agenda, he took to the stage in Dudley to formally launch the Midlands Engine with a promise of £392 million.
I'll tell you the good news. I used to live in Nottingham, so when I talk about the Midlands, I don't just think about the West Midlands. I know that the East Midlands is a powerhouse of small business. Across the East Midlands, Nottingham, Leicester, huge centres of successful entrepreneurial small businesses, and we're backing them all the way.
Next, the focus returned to the East Midlands, where local government minister Marcus Jones was at the National Space Centre to announce lift-off for Leicester and Leicestershire's economy with a package worth £26 million, including money for space research.
The space industry is a huge sector, one that's growing very quickly, and the government, through its industrial strategy, identifies it as an area where we can bring significant growth and jobs, high-value jobs to the economy. And here in Leicester, they are at the forefront of that sector, and that's why we're backing the projects that the Local Enterprise Partnership has put forward.
A few moments later, Andrew Percy, a local government minister, was in Sherwood Forest playing Robin Hood and handing out £63 million to the poor. Well, to the D2N2 Enterprise Partnership, to be exact, £500,000 included for a new visitors centre here.
The idea that government goes around picking winners between different regions of the country is a nonsense. Of course we're investing in the East Midlands, as we're investing in the West Midlands, as we're investing in Yorkshire and the Humber and the North West, because we're absolutely genuine when we say we want to create an economy that does work for everybody.
Derby will get £11 million to help with the regeneration of the city centre, and Nottingham will get £10 million towards the £150 million revamp of the Broadmarsh. That's not the end of the spending though. Back there's Loughborough. Ahead of me is junction 23 of the M1 motorway. It regularly gets congested. So they're going to spend £12 million improving the roads around here. That's going to free up land for 4,000 new homes. It's all part of improving the infrastructure, the Midlands Connect part of the Midlands Engine. The government wants to increase productivity. Part of what's holding the region and the nation back is our transport system. Clogged roads slow us down, costing time and money.
It can be tiring at times because due to the road conditions, a couple of locations within the local area which could do with improvement.
So long-term plans to invest in road and rail is good for business.
It will reduce traffic on the roads for us, and it will give us greater accuracy in our delivery times for our customers.
We run our trucks 24 hours a day, night and day, and we have a lot of time deliveries. And obviously any delays that we get along the way just have a knock-on effect, and by the end of the day we end up having to put more vehicles on the road to cover the jobs we've currently got.
The ultimate prize of the Midlands Engine will be a £34 billion boost to the economy and 300,000 new jobs. For years there's been talk of the Midlands Engine, but not much sign of action. For the Chancellor, though, this was the week when the boxes for boosting this region's economy began to be ticked. The challenge now will be to make it run smoothly.
So hundreds of millions of pounds going to be spent here. That's got to be good news for the East Midlands, hasn't it, Lillian?
Well, of course, it is good news that the government have finally remembered that the Midlands exists, that we don't live in a country that just consists of London and the North. A lot of this money is re-spending money that had already been announced, but certainly it's welcome. I think there are two issues for me, Mary. One is that, of course, whilst we're hearing about millions of pounds now, we know that our local authorities have lost absolutely many, many times more over the last few years. Nottingham City Council's lost £82 million in the last 4 years, and of course that makes it difficult to do things like maintaining the roads, and naturally that leads to problems. And of course our number one transport priority for the region has been the electrification of Midland Main Line. That's already been delayed by 4 years, and now we know that its future is in doubt. So yes, it's welcome.
Is its future in doubt? I was just going to ask Heather, is it in doubt, or why is the government holding back from letting us know where you stand on it? I mean, where's the funding?
Well, if you actually read the Midlands Connect brochure, it's in there front and centre. So it's
so your government's fully committed to it?
Absolutely, it's not in doubt whatsoever.
Well, why wouldn't the Minister commit to it being completed by 2023, as promised, when I challenged him at the last transport questions?
You know very well that we have a number of Victorian bridges that are going to it needs a huge amount of lift up because of the extra amount for the electric cables. It's huge. So
it was meant to happen by 2019. It's already been delayed by 4 years, and there's no commitment from your Rail Minister for it to be completed as promised.
It's in the Midlands Connect brochure. Please read it.
Well, let's talk about the deals that are on the table this week. Is it enough cash here for the Midlands Engine, though, Heather? I mean, the Northern Powerhouse got £556 million back in January. There are an awful lot of projects to have work done in our region. Is it enough?
Of course it is, because apart from anything else, you know that we've got HS2 coming, and believe it or not, that means it comes to the Midlands before it gets to the North. So there's huge amounts of money being spent. But more than that, I mean, the Woodville regeneration route, we've been waiting years to get that done. That's £4.4 million that the government's allocated to that. We've got £2.2 million for the Drakelow Bridge between South Derbyshire and Burton as well. I mean, all these pinch points that are going to be sorted out.
But there was a lot of pinch points, and our infrastructure has been a problem for a long time, hasn't it?
Absolutely, and so fine. So we're doing it now. I think all you can say is, fantastic new Prime Minister. What else do I need to say?
Well, you would say that, of course. Lillian, there are details here, of course, which Heather alludes to, which will make a big difference here in the East Midlands. Also, the funding to rebuild the assembly rooms in Derby, improving the Broadmarsh area, as you know, in Nottingham, which is long overdue, according to many people, and even those better road junctions around Loughborough. So plenty to say that needed to be done, that is actually going to be done now.
Well, as I said, Mary, it's welcome that after almost 7 years, the government government have finally remembered that the Midlands exists and thrown some money at the problem. But as I say, it pales into insignificance besides the sort of cuts that our local authorities, local transport authorities have had to deal with. And no matter what Heather says, there is no certainty about our major project electrification. And without that, all the talk about making us HS2 ready, if we can't run classic compatible services by having an electrified Midland Main Line, we won't be able to reap the full benefits. And of course, at the same time as we're trying to prepare for jobs and growth, we're facing all the uncertainty that Brexit is going to mean for our region.
Heather?
I just think that, as usual, we only have negative things from Labour. We don't have anything about the positives. We're going to talk in a minute about education, so I'll leave that for there. But, there is so much about the way businesses have approached government and said, this bit here we need fixing, this bit here we need fixing, and we've listened.
And is this part of the post-Brexit plan?
Indeed it is, because
Midlands
it's about making us absolutely fit to be global Britain and to be looking wider than our neighbours in Europe, because that's what I think people demand of us, and that's what we want to do.
Well, businesses I talk to are incredibly worried about what the future is going to hold, particularly manufacturing businesses who wanted to be part of the single market, who wanted to be part of the customs union, who are worried about being able to attract and retain skilled staff.
Still a lot of uncertainty, obviously, on those things.
A huge amount of uncertainty, and I think it's far from clear that the government has properly addressed the answers. It hardly even got a mention in the budget because the government know that they're creating huge difficulties
as far as this plan's concerned. There's an interesting feature to it, isn't there? That is that new targets for export growth are India, China, the US, Africa, the Middle East. No EU countries. Is this how it's going to look in the future? Is this the way we have to look?
It's the way we have to look, because you actually look at the economy of Europe. The economy of Europe is shrinking. So why on earth would you make our companies insist that they grow their market in Europe when it's a shrinking market on its own? You've got to look to the countries that are expanding. When you've got Ghana and places like that, where their GDP going up 6%, of course that's where you want your businesses to talk about exporting to. And the idea of us not being prepared to do free trade agreements around the world, bespoke deals, we are absolutely ready and up for it.
Time to give up on the EU? Look further afield.
Oh, we just look further afield.
Well, Europe is, those are our nearest neighbours, they're our major trading partners. It would be crazy to even think about giving up on the EU. When you look at the companies in the East Midlands who rely on being able to export from the EU, we know we need to get the closest possible ties, albeit that the government have already thrown away, without even the negotiations having started, membership of the single market.
Well, let's move on to skills now. And if we are to boost our economy, improving the skills among our workforce will be a priority. The region has traditionally lagged behind much of the rest of the country when it comes to a skilled workforce and suffers from low pay as a result. Well, now the government's launching a new qualification. T-levels will concentrate on providing more vocational training for students to try to boost productivity in our economy. Here's our political reporter, Wesley Mallin.
Get any group of people together from the technical, engineering or construction industries, and eventually the conversation will turn to the skills gap. Bridging that gap means starting with the younger generation. At the Roundhouse in Derby, these students are getting a hands-on introduction to construction at an event aimed at getting more women into the industry.
We should do more days like this and encourage more girls to get into construction. People do prefer sometimes women going into their houses than men. So I think it's helpful that I could be a construction worker.
It really encouraged me as a female to go into the construction industry, as it shows that females can do as much as males can do.
But businesses say we need more people doing more vocational work right the way across the board. Now, this week the government announced it was bringing in T-levels alongside A-levels, but with a greater concentration on teaching skills that lead directly into employment, with subjects including business skills, a digital T-level and construction.
The new T-level qualifications, I think it puts the digital skill set that all employers require right at the forefront of educational attainment, and certainly our members have very much welcomed this new qualification and the new fund that's clearly going to support that.
There'll be 15 subjects for students to choose from, replacing more than 13,000 courses at the moment, and the amount of time spent training will go up by 50%.
The technical route will actually be more fit for purpose and will enable young people to either go into work more ready because they've had such a large amount of practical experience, or take the apprenticeship route.
Katie Hicks is an apprentice bricklayer who's enjoying combining studying with practical work.
Last year I went on site and I wasn't confident at all doing what I was doing, but now there's a split and I'm learning and working. It's definitely boosted my confidence and it's good.
The new qualifications come with £500 million of funding for the higher education sector, although critics say it's been hard hit by cuts and more is needed to invest in facilities and prevent colleges from closing courses. The government, though, insists it's a radical overhaul that will boost the economy.
So, Heather Wheeler, another shake-up of education. Is this really wise when we know at the moment your government is under attack from teachers who say they're struggling with a reduced curriculum and increased class sizes?
That's an interesting take on something that's unbelievably positive and for the future for our children. We know that we need to upskill our children. We know that in the East Midlands, historically for years, we have not done well enough by our children. Again, businesses have been crying out for us to do this. This is being done in partnership with local colleges and businesses, and the training is just going to be absolutely excellent for them. Not just hands-on stuff, but really high-tech, high-technology stuff. And I think it's wonderful. I think we ought to maybe look at what Germany's been doing for years and years and years. You have a skill set that has high esteem in their communities. Well, why would we not want to do that too?
And we lag behind some of our European neighbours, don't we? Lillian Greenwood, there's £500 million of funding for this. That's got to be welcome, hasn't it?
It's absolutely welcome that there's now an investment coming in technical education. You might well ask why it's taken the government 6.5 years to notice that this was something that needed to be done, because actually 16 to 18 education in particular has been incredibly hard hit with cuts. And whilst the £500 million is welcome, that money doesn't even start coming through until 2018. 19. But of course, we've got to see it in the wider context, which is our schools under funding pressures as absolutely never before. And at school, children increasingly being pushed into a very academic curriculum. There's been a terrible failure to get proper careers advice and guidance to those young people. So if we want them to be able to choose a technical education and to give that proper standards, then we need to deal with the wider context as well.
And I guess that's what you were alluding to as well, Heather. I mean, this all, doesn't it? It all links back to the Midlands Engine and the need to improve skills in our region. And the report which came out this week actually said that in the East Midlands, only 32% of the workforce have degrees. The national average is 37%. So something needs to be done, because education clearly is key if we're to up our productivity.
It is. And what I find really interesting is that as you go around all of these schools, we do this all the time, don't we? But also then talking directly to D2 and to our local enterprise partnership, how they link in the businesses with education. I mean, we've got two fantastic, I'm really lucky. I mean, I've got Derby College and I've got Burton and South Derbyshire College. They are so good at what they can channel the kids towards. Proper apprenticeships, really good quality training, and then the apprenticeships that go all the way up through to doing degrees as an apprentice. I mean, that's nirvana.
Lillian, while you have concerns about underfunding and other areas in education, do you think that this will help productivity, these T-levels?
Well,
and the emphasis on vocational training?
All the emphasis in the announcement in the budget is on young people, and rightly we want to invest in the next generation. But what we're in danger of missing is the huge skills gap for lots of the existing workforce. And all that's been put in is £40 million to look at, well, how are we going to address lifelong learning? That is so inadequate. We really need to upskill all of our workforce if we're going to face the challenges that we're going to have as a result of leaving the European Union.
Well,
so it's just too little too late.
How would you do that?
Well, we
with
need
the money that's available, and the resources that are available.
I mean, some of it is about providing sufficient resources, and it is about looking at the skills needs of the whole workforce and providing opportunities for everybody to upskill so that they can meet what employers are demanding. And we're absolutely going to have to, because employers are really worried about how they're going to recruit the workers of the future if they can't access European Union workers?
I think that is absolutely spurious and a complete red herring, because if you go around companies like Nestle, and fortunate to have a company in Hatton that has grown from 300 people to nearly 1,000 people, they are taking apprentices at all ages. And that is wonderful, that somebody coming in at 45 will say, do you know what, this is what I want to learn, and Nestle are prepared to invest in them.
We're going to have to leave that one there. Thank you both. Time now